neighborhood is in essence what makes San Francisco San Francisco. There is nowhere in the rest of the world do you have what we have here in San Francisco. We have such an energy and such a cultural phenomenon, if you will.
This used to be the prime neighborhood. I moved here when I started college. Now it's just another crappy, it's becoming another just crappy San Francisco neighborhood. Might as well be Clement and Fifth.
Businesses, small businesses, not quite as friendly as they used to be. More cars, for example, the double park kind of attitude. There's not as many children.
I think we should have more small businesses, family-owned businesses.
And I think it's good to sort of be politically active, especially in terms of your neighborhood and keeping it the way you want it to be.
I moved to San Francisco for college and stayed after to work. Living in San Francisco's Inner Sunset neighborhood and commuting downtown to work every day, I really enjoyed the neighborhood's vibrancy and central location. There was a lot going on. Riding to work on the N-Judah train, I kept noticing boycott signs in an apartment window along 9th Avenue. I knew they'd been up there for a few years. Who would keep the signs up for so long? And why? So I went and asked. When I sat down to talk, the story began to unravel. A story involving absent records, political loophole jumping, neighbors in confusion, and quickly organized grassroots resistance. A resistance that for the owner of the boycott signs would become a 10-year ordeal.
When I first came here, I used to pass by on the N-Judah. I was staying in the Outer Sunset with a friend, and I thought this is like a little neighborhood in San Francisco. It'd be cool to live here. And I remember one time I was on the N-Judah, and I heard this woman talking about how our neighborhood, the Inner Sunset, is like a small town within San Francisco.
I firmly believe that our neighborhood characters are what bring the tourists to the city, and we should keep them.
I believe those involved in grassroots neighborhood activism strive to benefit the residents of the city's unique communities.
This is about neighborhood diversity. This is about cultural diversity. This is not about monocultural McDonald's, Burger King, Starbucks culture invading every neighborhood to the point where every neighborhood becomes the same.
We're known for our unique neighborhoods, our wonderful food, and that's what we really need to look into, the future of San Francisco.
Sometimes, however, the struggle can turn personal. That's how it was for one resident, Harry Pariser, the owner of the boycott signs. For him, it became a personal battle, a beef over the presence of the Burger King right next door.
The first time I ever heard of it was September of '96. I was walking down the street and there were these guys and they were doing work on the floor, and I said, "What's going in here?" He says, "Oh, Burger King." And I said, "What?" So I went down to the coffee shop down the street and I told them, and they said, "Ha ha ha, that's really funny."
Harry found himself fighting an uphill battle. The owner of the Burger King, Eddie Zito, and his landlady, Julie Lee, refused to reveal to the neighbors the identity of the forthcoming restaurant, and the installation of the fast food franchise was proceeding without any known building permits, public notices, or public hearings.
I called up the owner, and he said, "I don't know what kind of restaurant it's going to be. I don't have the franchise permit yet." Their deliberate policy has been acting by stealth, and somehow the permits don't seem to be on the computers. Nobody knows anything about it. Then we had a meeting with the community, and he admitted that it was going to be a Burger King.
Having been successful in the past, the neighbors felt they would be able to keep the unwanted Burger King out.
I believe a Rite Aid was coming, or a Blockbuster, and the neighborhood defeated that.
They attempted to put a Rite Aid in down here, and I spoke against it. A lot of other people were active against it, and it was stopped.
Blockbuster Video wanted to go in the corner here.
The owner, however, made use of a loophole in city laws, allowing him to avoid public input and continue installing the Burger King unchecked.
The law is that under 1,000 square feet, you do not need to tell what you are going to put in. That space back there was well over 1,000 square feet. What he did was he cut part of the back off, and then he said that space is not going to be used for anything. But in fact, he is using it for an office, because I've seen him going back there on numerous occasions. As far as putting up the sign goes, I put it up as part of the effort, because they were tearing down every other sign we would put up immediately. We went around, and the guys went down to Kinko's, and we put up all these signs with tape, and by 7 o'clock in the morning, they were all been taken down. And then I saw other signs, and I saw the foreman giving them to the police. And I was wondering why he was doing that, and then later on I realized the plan was to try to make us look like racists, because Mr. Zito is Chinese born in Hong Kong, and we all know that Burger King is Chinese food. Then Tom Amiano called for hearings at the Board of Supervisors. Julie Lee had recruited all these people, and they're all carrying these signs like "No discrimination against poor people." She claimed that this sign had been put up saying "No Chink Burger King," which none of us had ever seen anywhere, not one of them. But it had been turned into the police, and the police were investigating it as a hate crime. As soon as the Board of Supervisors heard the word racism, they shut up, because that's like the intimidating thing that you play that nobody can talk about. All of this, of course, did not prevent the Burger King from opening.
Despite Harry and the neighborhood's best efforts, the Burger King opened in December of 1996.
Specifically, I do know that the Burger King chain here, the store here, was heavily resented by the community. I saw a lot of it reflected on our list and also on the well.
Now we have a Burger King around the corner on 9th. That was very bad. They snuck that in on us.
I really feel it's an eyesore. As well, it's also, it takes away from what makes San Francisco, San Francisco.
Yeah, I support the Burger King, actually. It's the only place, like a working class person can really afford food here, it seems to me.
For less money than a Burger King Whopper with fries and Coke, you can go to a taqueria and get a big burrito for $3.65. I can't even eat one of those things.
And there's a nut above it that's got a problem with it, but I think that's sort of a comical situation.
I like the fact that someone's radical in the sense that they're willing to put that up in front of their home, as opposed to maybe they want to have something else, as a window display maybe. But I feel that that's a good thing that they're doing that, and it brings a sense of awareness, maybe a level of consciousness. Maybe it makes people think, well, let me look at that, think twice before you enter in there.
Before it opened, I had a sign in the window saying "No Burger King." After it opened, my landlord received repeated threats in the mail from Mr. Zito's lawyer, even though there's no legal basis to stop me from having a "No Burger King" sign. So I changed it to "Boycott Burger King" sign. I repeatedly told Mr. Zito that anytime he was willing to negotiate, I was willing to take down the signs. And there were signs next door also. They took it down because it was blocking their window. They wanted more light. The fact that my door is less than 10 feet from his door, and that even before I go outside, I can smell it, and when I sit in my kitchen, I can hear on the intercom, "2 Whoppers and fries." An 18-wheeler truck would pull up in front of my house at 4 o'clock in the morning, and these guys would get out to deliver patties. And the burglar alarm would go off for about 20 minutes because they didn't know how to open up the door right.
I know personally I would not like to live on top of a Burger King.
I wouldn't want to be by a Burger King.
I think I'd just move. That's just me.
Would you ever think of moving because of the Burger King?
No. Absolutely not. Although the owner has indicated me on numerous occasions I should move. His attitude is, if you don't like it, move. He is operating a business, and that is the only thing that is important to him. And the only value that is important. It doesn't matter who is living there or what other circumstances he might have come into under. That is how things are going to be.
At about this time, Zito had also begun installing another Burger King in the nearby Western Addition neighborhood.
The two cases are very parallel. Not on the computers, neighbors not notified. Someone from the planning department came to me and they asked if I knew anything about a Burger King going in that location. So I kept going to the computers at the Department of Building Inspection and Planning, and there was nothing on them. And then every Thursday I went into the Planning Commission and said, we're hearing that they've applied and we can't find any records. I think basically he's in to make big bucks and at all cost. He does not converse, he does not try to compromise. He wants what he wants. He's determined to get it in.
Hearing these things being said about the Burger King owner, I decided to interview him myself to see what he had to say. I was wondering if you'd want to contribute and answer some questions for it.
I'm not allowed to. It's a franchise. You have to call corporation for information.
To even talk to you about anything, interview you about your business at all.
I have no reason to do it.
I've interviewed Harry Pariser.
Oh, he's the one who's causing trouble. That's why.
And he said negative comments. And
absolutely.
Did you? I mean, if you would,
I don't want to say anything against him.
I want to hear your side of the story too, though.
Nobody would believe me anyway, so I have done it before with the press, in court. Still, they don't give a damn. So it's all the story is all twisted. So why bother? So that's why I'm not going to do any more. Period.
Meanwhile, Harry was experiencing some bizarre behavior.
Someone was scattering around these rather silly signs, and some guy, in fact, collected a bunch of them around the bus stop, and he called me up and he said, "You're the neighborhood hero, and I found all of these." And like these signs say, "Let me buy your burgers. Call Harry with my phone number. I buy burgers, Harry." So, for example, we'd have this kind of thing: boycott Harry Parisier. And then I came out one night. All this garbage is spilled out because it isn't sufficient to fit into one garbage can. And this mailman, please deliver all my mail to Burger King. And boycott Harry. And I was getting phone calls like at 3 a.m. I have to unplug my phone every night. This went on for months. And the police could trace it only to a payphone. But he also put his fist through my front door. Yeah. Because he had been chasing me. When it closed the door, he claims I slammed the doors, but the doors are on a hinge. You can't slam the doors. All you can do is close them, and they close. It can't hurt anybody. And then he got very frustrated, so he came running after me. My door is also on a spring, and I was in my house, and I hear this crash, and I look out, and I go, oh, shit. I didn't know what to do, so I look out the window, and I see his hand being bandaged by the emergency unit.
Throughout this ordeal, Harry's boycott signs hovered steadily above the Burger King. Eventually, the raw deal Harry and the neighbors were served began to turn. It started when San Francisco City Hall removed the 1,000-square-foot loophole.
Lee Lin-Yi introduced legislation which initially encountered strong opposition from the Board of Supervisors that would force businesses to say what they're going to open on.
We thank Supervisor Yi for his conscientiousness to put this through.
With this new legislation on their side, the neighbors now smelled victory in the Western Addition case.
There was a stop work order issued. It was pulled back by the planning department. They continued to build. They were cited. They finally had a cease and desist order put on them.
In the case of the other Burger King in the Western Addition, they took that up to the Board of Supervisors, I believe, and it was defeated. He was not able to open that, and it's still a 140-year-old Victorian which formerly housed the Mr. Falafel, which served the neighborhood.
Over in the Sunset, however, the beef heated as Harry attempted to demand changes from his new next-door neighbor.
I would go jogging and I'd pick up some Burger King wrappers and deliver them in front of the door. The pointed message being, get your employees out there to clean up the neighborhood. Is that a criminal offense as he later made it out to be? No. Did I do it repeatedly? I did it a few times and then I stopped. And then 6 months later, because I was closing the door, because I object to the smell, because they haven't eaten meat for over a quarter century.